Word. Okay. I want to welcome everybody to our bonus education night on November the 30th, 2023. I'm going to see, I don't see anybody new here. It's all our experienced members. I got a bunch of announcements. First off, it's renewal time. I sent out an email about it a while back, actually a couple, and a bunch of, we got a lot of renewals in, but we don't have everybody. So, the quicker you can get it in, the less I will bug you about it. So, because I will be sending out emails specifically to the people that haven't renewed by the end of by the end of December. So, and then again in January, and however long it takes me to get you guys to renew. So anyway, and there is that, use the link on the website, and you can please fill out the form. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, but in case anything has changed, it's a good thing. And then you submit the form, and then you hit the button at the bottom to pay your dues. So don't forget to do that. The big announcement for this week is we have our party coming up on Sunday. Which it's coming up. It came up pretty quickly, but it's that time of year, December the 3rd, and it will be at 1 p.m. at Felipe Park over in Safety Harbor, where we've had it for the last 2 years, at Pavilion 8. All the information is on the website, so if you have any, but if you go through that, if you can't remember everything, just go through that again. If you have any questions, just email me or text me. If you haven't already done and you're done so and you're going to go, please make sure you go to the website and check the spreadsheet link to see if what you want to bring is already being brought. And then don't try to put anything in the spreadsheet because it's locked. You can't add anything to it. But then scroll down to the form and just fill in the form as to what you're going, your name and what you're going to bring.
We're going to miss you, Victoria.
Yeah. I'm going to miss you guys.
And Doris.
And Doris, yeah.
A few others from other states.
I thought Doris was going.
Yeah, don't forget to bring your push pin, what we used to call push pin prints. It's at least 8x11 print that you have not submitted previously. And this is your opportunity to get up in front of everybody and talk about your print. So usually what we try to do is come with a print that has a story behind it so that you can share the story. It needs to be, it should be on a piece of either foam core or matted or something so that it doesn't, it's easy to look at. And we hang it up. We don't have a wall anymore since we're at the pavilion. So we hang it up on with clothespins on a line. Don't forget the silent auction, which we need donated photo related items for, and then bring your money so you can buy other people's stuff that they donated. This helps pay for the stuff that we do. Well, it helps pay for the party, but it also helps whatever money we go collect actually goes towards our educational speakers as well.
Lynn, may I interrupt you about the donations? May I interrupt you? I haven't told you what I'm bringing.
Okay, just bring it on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, just bring it on Sunday. Yeah, it's too much trouble trying to do it beforehand. Just bring it to me, and I'll. That's my job on Sunday, is to set everything up. So
very good, thank you.
We have a couple of grills coming, and plus there's a grill at that pavilion. So just a reminder, if you're not aware, there is no electricity there. So if you bring something that needs to be warmed up, bring it in a container that we can put on the fire on the grill. We have a gas grill and a charcoal grill.
What I was going to also do is on the gas burner that I have, bring it's a real wide, shallow pot. Put some water in there if somebody had something they needed to heat up. It could go in there.
Okay. So don't forget, we also have a raffle, which everybody will get a raffle ticket when you arrive. It's free, and we have a lot of cool photo related items to give away for the raffle. So that's one reason to come. And then last but not least, we will have our awards given out. So we'll be giving out 6 awards this year. We, changed our scoring system and everything. So we definitely have 6 people to give awards to. So hopefully you'll be there to accept your award if you got one. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions about the party? We just want you to come and, if you want to wear your ugly Christmas sweater, that's fine. We don't have a contest for that.
83-degree weather.
In 83 degree weather. It might be your ugly Christmas raincoat, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, just come on, have a good time. If you want to there's picnic tables there for those that have not been there before, but you can also bring chairs if you want to bring some chairs they're a little more comfortable to sit on the chairs rather than the picnic tables sometimes. So
hopefully Jim Williams will bring his ugly Santa Claus outfit.
Hey,
Has he never not?
calling Santa Claus.
Okay, so if we're moving on from the party, our next outing is going to be Bach Tower Gardens over in Lake Wales on February the 3rd, which is a Saturday. We'll put together some details on that and get that out to everybody sometime in January. And then after that is Photo Camp, which is March 1st through the 3rd. That will be at Rainbow Springs again. The camping will be at Rainbow Springs, but we're changing things up a little bit this year. And rather than going back into Rainbow Springs State Park to do our morning photo walk, we are going to someplace new, a place called Cedar Lakes Woods and Gardens, which is a private reserve about 30 minutes from the campgrounds. It's a little farther north, so those that are coming just for the day are going to have a little longer trip. It's about a 2-hour drive from Tampa. But it's really interesting. We went there last weekend to check it out to make sure it was worth taking the trip for. And there's waterfalls. It's an old mine that was converted into a botanical gardens, and so there's waterfalls. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of flowers and plants and things like that. There's an upper level, and then there's a lower level down by the water. They have pavilions there, but we found out today that it's a little expensive to use their pavilion, so we will not be having lunch there. We'll have to go back to the campground, which is back in the direction of Tampa anyway. So we'll go back to the campgrounds to have lunch and have our traditional after lunch discussion with Robert. So so that's March 1st through 3rd. We will get the information, get everything onto the website and sign up for the camping and all that sometime in January or February. In terms of assignments, hopefully you had a chance. I know some of them were talking about it today about the assignments for next year. They have been listed on the website. So if you haven't already done so, go in there and read through them. Between myself and Jim, we put a lot of effort into explaining what we're looking for to try to narrow things down. The January assignment is a redemption assignment. It's for macro. And macro, they're looking for 1-to-1, which is, actual size. If you put it up against the camera, it is the actual size of the object, the small object that you're doing, or bigger than it normally is when you'd see with your eye. So, we want true macro. A lot of things are called macro that are not macro. They're close-ups, whatever. We want true macro, and you can't crop it. So you got to shoot it right to start off with. This is a little, tricky, but that's the point. We're learning stuff here. In February, the assignment is geometric shapes in nature. That's not a building in nature. It's not something man-made in nature that's a geometric shape. It's hard to find geometric shapes, circles, squares, rectangles, triangles in nature, but we want you to look for those and create a nice looking picture of that shape. Again, this is trying to get you to open your eyes and see the world a little more closely.
And if that happens to be macro, that's okay too?
Yeah, it happens to be, if it's macro, that's fine. Yeah, as long as it's the geometric shape in nature. It's not, It's
Yeah.
not, you can't take a bunch of leaves and put them in a circle and say that's the way it is. That's
But they
cheating.
fall that way.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's so happen doesn't happen that way too often. So yeah, it's got to be most of the time we don't care if you manipulate things, but this time we don't want you manipulating anything. And then March is the assignment is creative lens flare. And some of us are better at that than others. So we decided that we would have an education night for that. And that brings me to the next part of the announcements, which is our education nights. In January, Jim is going to do, who is our, expert creative lens flare guy. I mean, he's the one who taught me how to do it. And it's like, I have to do it every time I see the sun in a tree, I got to shoot a flare. He's going to go over that for our January education night. And I'm glad to say that from popular demand after Joshua Cripps, the young guy that did our talk last year or this year on telescopic landscapes, he is going to come back in February and do a talk for us on using PhotoPills app, which is, if you haven't used, I mean, I use it for checking, sunset, sunrise, where, when and where the Milky Way is going to be. It does a lot more, and he's obviously not going to be able to get to everything that the app does because it's very comprehensive. But he only have 90 minutes to do this in, so he's going to give us the most important parts of this. And he's done major photo shoots using PhotoPills, and he is one of PhotoPills' spokespersons, so he knows a lot about PhotoPills. And it is an app that you can put on either an iPhone or an Android phone. So it's not something that, some of us have and some of us can't have, but it's for a photographer. And if you're, doing any kind of landscape work or anything where you need to know where the sun is and where it's coming up, or where the moon is and where it's coming up, or if you're interested in astrophotography, you want to know where the Milky Way is, this is the app to use, but there's so much more to it. So he is going to be a great, we'll have him again. And Alan has agreed to come back. We just haven't nailed down a time yet. So he's going to be coming back to do street photography because he's really good at it. And he learned from the best. He learned from, what's his name?
Jay Mizell.
Jay Mizell.
Yeah, Jay Mizell. So, it's kind of like one removal from one of the top street photographers in the world. So, and Alan's no squelch about his stuff is really good anyway. So we'll be getting him later on in the year too. And I'm working on a bunch of other people. So as soon as I have more information, I'll let you know on that. The other thing we had to do tonight, because we had Alan speaking for us last month, which is when we normally do our election every 2 years. We need to do election tonight, but is there anybody that wants to nominate themselves or somebody else? I sent out a couple of emails. I got no responses. All the current officers have decided they want to rerun again. And so I'll list out the officers for those who may or may not know who everybody is. I am the president. Jim Sykes is the vice president. Jack Maniscalco is the treasurer. Victoria is the secretary. Lee is the membership director. Robert is education. And then we have 4 at-large directors. That's Brian, Sylvia, Lee Wynn, and Leslie. So there's 10 officers. So is anybody, I have to ask this, is there anybody that wants to nominate themselves or somebody else? Nope. Okay. Then unless there's any disagreement, yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Lynn, even though I am running unopposed, I feel like I have to make a candidate speech. So I want you to know that the Tampa Bay Camera Club is fiscally sound, and because of Maniscalconomics. Furthermore, a poll conducted by the PU Foundation says there's 100% employment of our club members that are employed. I'm planning to propose that for the next year, if any new taxes are enacted, it will be only levied on those members that are making over $2 million a year. The middle class and lower class will not be affected. And lastly, if elected treasurer for another term, I will propose a stimulus package to the board of directors for all Tampa Bay Camera Club members. I just want you to know that.
You got my vote.
Sounds like you took time to prepare it.
I think we have-
Yeah, I also have an acceptance speech if I'm elected. Thank you very much.
I don't even have a speech.
Oh, my. Came unprepared, huh?
I
As
think
usual.
George Santos wants to run.
It's so
I would like
unlikely.
to, I would like to nominate Jack because I want to hear his acceptance speech.
Well, I warn you, it's 30 minutes long. Maybe we'll have to save it for another night.
Hey, wait. I take my nomination back.
There's always a Christmas party.
Good.
Okay, well,
I'll stand in a corner.
Thank
A
you, Jack, for
soapbox.
that nice speech.
Hey, you're welcome.
If since nobody is being, we're all running unopposed, then I move that that the slate of officers stand as it is. And do I have any here a second?
A
Second.
second.
So, do we all say aye?
I,
Okay. Right, then the officers stand as they are, as they were, and as they are now going forward. So thank you. I want to thank all the officers. They've done a great job. We've been through a lot the last 2 years because of me, basically, in other things.
No,
but
that's not true.
I'm the one that pushes the heck out of them, but they've done a good job. We've had a lot of let's say discussions after meetings, and we've had our board meetings, but we've also had some meetings after the regular meetings. So I want to thank them for taking the time and putting in the effort. And believe it or not, guys, the retreat that we took this year, we actually got a lot done, believe it or not. We did a lot of photography too, but we did
Yeah.
get some work done. So
I think this election was rigged.
yeah. Something. Yeah.
The voting machine should be confiscated and damn it.
I think the votes were, were like hanging chads somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any comments, any questions about anything? Robert's here, so we're good. Nope. All right. Well, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and well, move on to getting a little more education for the year. And so I'm going to turn it over to Robert. And I think he's going to be talking for a little while. If we have any time, if it's not too late, then we will, take any other questions about photography or Photoshop or Lightroom that you want to throw at us, and we'll see what we can do with it. By then, Jim should be here too, because he's running late as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Robert. Oh, wait, but let me make you a host.
My dear, that's Sandy Whitfield,
Right. Let
your
me,
daughter-in-law.
Robert. right. Now
okay.
you should be a co-host.
Okay. All right. Very good. It's gonna be okay. All right. Let me see if I can find everybody here. Let's see. Okay, got
We got
everybody.
25 people here for a bonus night. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, guys, what we're going to talk about a little about is going to be printing. Is anybody printing at home? Show of hands. You got a couple of people, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and
I am.
yeah,
I
printing
print.
at home. Okay, so I would depend on you guys to help me out. I just left a class over at Dunedin, and I left my notes, and I was halfway here before I realized it, and then so I couldn't turn around. But anyway, out of those people that are printing, then I don't want to be preaching to the choir. That's the one thing I don't want. So before I get started, I would like to know anything that any of you would I would like to know what any of you would like to know about printing, why you're not printing, and what would compel you to actually start printing.
I'll go.
Okay.
Okay. I have hardware problems. I mean, I have an Epson wide format printer. And, almost everybody has told me that if you don't print frequently, you've got to clean your print heads all the time. I seem to be in an endless loop of cleaning the print heads, replenishing the ink, yada, yada, yada. And in the end, I just, I get discouraged, and if I really want something printed, I will bring it somewhere to have it printed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone
I have
else?
one.
It
I have
depends on
one.
It depends on the
Yeah.
printer though.
I'm here. Oh, Jim is here. Okay. The other Jim that was talking. What was your statement?
Okay, I guess the biggest issue that I have, and probably some other folks, is calibrating your monitor to match the printer. Some photos come out too dark and they're bright on the screen and that routine. So calibrating the printer to match your monitor is probably my biggest issue.
Okay.
So the reason that I don't print is because the cost of buying a quality printer and the cost of buying ink exceeds, in my view, the cost of having somebody else do it for me.
That's going to be the number one reason why people don't print.
And
Anybody
Sherry
else?
was going to say something.
Fong, you have something to say?
Before this, in the Costco, Sam Club, many places can print. Now only Woogly, I don't like they print, not qualified. So I want to try print. So I don't know what need a laser printer, what kind of quality printer and what kind of paper I will use.
Okay, paper and printer, and you're looking actually for recommendations.
Yes.
Is that am I hearing that correctly?
Sounds like it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I find it's like owning a boat. It's best to have your friend own the boat. And it's best to have your friend own a fantastic printer, which is what I have.
You have a friend that has a fantastic printer.
Yeah.
And knows how to use it,
Jim. Jim has a fantastic printer.
I'd have to get a friend first.
No, Jim Sykes, yeah.
Yeah, I bring this up because printing is one of those things that it's a in my opinion a necessary evil. And what I mean by necessary is that it is the final test of what it is that you've actually done. Meaning that it's as it goes across social media, you put your work out there, depending on whatever monitor is receiving it. People are receiving it on different types of monitor, calibrated, non-calibrated, blue, brown, and they all see your image differently. And oftentimes, even here, when we are having critique, we say, it didn't look like that on my monitor. We've heard that 100 million times. So when you have the print and you share the print with someone, then there is no question as to what you are seeing and or getting, unless you are looking at a print with rose-colored glasses or shades. And then at that point, the print look a little different. But the print also tells you how well you did as far as communicating what it is that you want to say. So I don't mean to lecture to anyone, but that is why we print. And the great part about printing or even having things printed is that it is somewhat of a permanent record. It is the piece that we run in the house, burning house for. So prints are very, very, very important. And the greater part about printing things yourself is that it doesn't matter whether it's 2 in the afternoon or 2 a.m. You can go in there, fire up those print heads, and then begin to make great images or great frustration. Now,
Probably that one.
I think some of you have had your images printed by Jim and have been quite pleased with them, if you have. And the reason why that the images that, if you send them to Jim, are done quite well, and this is not an advertisement for Jim, and Jim is not paying me for any of those things. I've had images printed by Jim and have been quite pleased with them, is because it's very hard to get someone to see things or to communicate to people when they're printing your work. Meaning you send it off, you get it back, you look at it, you accept it, and you go on. Whereas when you have someone, a printer that you can communicate with, and they print for you, and they print and communicate or talk with you about it, then you get the expression from the image that you had intended. Is this making any sense to anyone? Yes?
Yeah.
Now, to get that same expression, we tend to be able, we're able to do it ourselves when we have a printer. And I am a big advocate for printing things yourself, because you end up seeing things and producing things the way you had intended. Okay. Now, some of before we go any further, one of the things that I held up, and Jim Higgins pointed out, is that I have a hard time getting what does this thing say? Automatically connect. Okay. Hard time getting images to look like they do on my screen. And one of the first things that I will say to you, Jim, is that you will need to calibrate your monitor. That's one of the first things that has to happen. I held up this monitor calibration system that we use. We used to use it if you came to the club and brought your computer. Yeah, you have one of those. So what generally happens is that we will, in the course of doing whatever calibration we have, after calibration, we'll turn our brightness up or down, simply to make the image look a certain way. And by turning that brightness up or down, we effectively affect how the image is going to come out, because we're seeing it as something very nice and bright on our screen when we've actually turned our screen up instead of down, and it ends up coming out a little dark.
Yeah, when you do the calibration, it says that you want to set the brightness of your monitor. It tells you when you're within the range, somewhere in the middle, and that's when I calibrate. That's what I do, or try to get it that close. But I'm not that certain on how that transfers over to the printer. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to go into it. Transfers over by a number of ways, but that's just the first thing. I'm assuming that you guys can see my screen.
While we're on that topic, Can I just throw something out there?
Absolutely.
Specifically related to this? One thing I've encountered as well is people using laptops, and you have big differences depending on how your laptop is set up with your screen brightness automatically, whether you are plugged into electrical wall power or whether you are running on battery. A lot of laptops are by default set to automatically dim the screen when you go on battery, and then some people turn the brightness back up, whatever, or you can go in the settings and change that. But one thing to be aware of with your calibration is that by default, a lot of laptops will automatically change the screen brightness depending on if you are plugged into the power supply or running on battery.
And Jim, I'm expecting you to chime in, because you are the actual master at printing. I'm just simply the spokesman.
I wouldn't say master, but I've gotten better at it over the years.
Jim, anytime that you're better than the mass, they call that master. All right. Yeah, that's a master. Now I'm on a Macintosh computer here and a monitor. And what Jim was just speaking of, I just recently, I mean, I've been on Macs forever, but the new operating system that I downloaded, I didn't notice until my images started to come out a little different than they had prior to the previous operating system. And I said, what is going on here that I can't get the brightness value that I wanted? And I found out that every time I update my system, this little dialog box that I did not see before automatically adjusts brightness. It was turned on.
Yeah.
So as was mentioned by Jim, what is that this little piece, it doesn't have to be a laptop. Even if you change your operating system, then that can affect it. So that's one of the things that you look for. Again, calibration is the first thing, and then making sure that your brightness stays wherever the calibration is set to. The next thing we go to is when we look at a particular image, is that on our screen, and I want to let you know that sometimes when you're doing this, meaning that you're printing, there are a couple of things that you are going to need to make sure that you look out for. Let me go back to the develop module. And there is this thing down in the develop module called soft proofing. So you guys ever seen it? Know what it is? No?
Yes.
I know that some of you guys have your screens off. That's okay, but unmute yourself. I need the interaction.
Yes, I know what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So in the use of that, oftentimes what will happen is that we will soft proof something using a particular profile that's mismatched to what it is that we are printing. Over here on the right-hand side, there is a profile chart, and I can then go in and select different types of paper, and that will allow me to see what the image might look, how it might look. I tend to print oftentimes on what is it? Pro Luster? I think that's what it is. Yeah, let me see if I can find that.
Hey, Robert, while you're looking, where was it that located at? I missed. You said it was on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it's on the right hand. And okay, there you go. On the right-hand side, once you hit soft proof, once you go to soft proof, then on the right-hand side, it will say something will say create proof copy. And then below that, it will say,
I see it.
The Canon, whatever it was. Now, in this, I think you just saw it change when I changed the paper type. I'll go back to, let's see if I go to, okay, yeah, I think, could you guys see that change?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Let's see, I'm gonna go back to, I'm gonna polar. There should have been a slight change there.
Yeah. There was.
All right, let's go to other. And I think what I was printing on before was a non. Let's look at
You had Matt selected before, Robert.
I thought I did. I sure thought I did. Matt, there you go. Okay, Canon Matt. I'll select that and I'll click OK. And it wasn't the Canon Matt, it was a different Matt. Ooh, that's not it. There it is. There it is. There you go. And now I would have to do a whole hell of a lot in order to get this picture to have the type of contrast that I think it needs. But what I'm pointing out about this is that the second reason that, going back to Jim Hagan's thoughts, is that we print to the wrong paper for the image. Meaning that I'm coming back to you, Jim. What type of paper are you printing to?
I have
not that Jim, the other Jim.
No,
Jim Hagan.
I have an Epson printer, and I use both matte and ultra gloss, and yeah, it's quite a bit difference when you're printing on that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you've already pointed out was that I have two monitors. Both of them were set to auto brightness, so I turned that off.
Woo! Okay.
Whoa. Okay, I have a question, Robin. What's all that blue stuff on the screen? When you change it to this paper, it added all that blue.
All right, the blues are showing you the black points.
Okay.
That's the out of gamut black points that it's going to render as a black. And it's going to render as a little muddy too as well. So in other words, if I reduce the blacks, it's going to, oh, by the way, if you make any kind of change to a soft proof, it's going to ask you to create a proof copy. Otherwise, you'll be doing this to your original. And I always create a proof copy whenever I do this sort of thing. So I move my blacks up and I move my shadows up, and I've opened up those shadows, but you notice the image becomes very, very flat when you do that. So this is telling me that with the type of dynamic range that I have going on here, that this image for this particular paper will not work for me. So I'm printing on the wrong paper, if I may say so out loud. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that brings us to images that do not print well. And we get frustrated after we, try a couple of times and it does not work. So if I change my paper source, go from matte, and what was the other one I used?
Luster.
Luster. There you go. Now that will print more like what we see on the screen. And I tend to use luster because I like the sheen that it has, and it's not glossy. I'm not a fan of glossy paper and or printing. That's me. That doesn't mean that when I see a glossy paper that it does not work for the other person. I've seen some people print on metallic paper and it looks really, really good. But this is my paper of choice. So moving on from that, I can also make tweaks inside of here in order to make this print the way I'd like for it to print. So once I've set my profile, and I like what's happening, and I don't need to make any other changes. In other words, I probably will make a change there. And you see the image getting a little brighter?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by the way, you can make local changes. You don't always have to make global changes. In other words, all of your tools will still work in order to adjust the image to whatever it is that you are trying to achieve. All right. So having said that, back to one of the other things that causes us to have problems with printing. I mentioned something about calibration. I mentioned something about brightness. I also mentioned something about profile. So where the heck do these profiles come from? They come from the paper manufacturer. Jim Sykes, is there a particular paper that you like?
I have about 10 different papers that I have in my inventory right now. They're all Epson or Red River papers, and yes, and I have all the Epson profiles and all the Red River profiles, for each of the papers.
I use Red River also, almost exclusively.
And I am a Red River fan as well. I don't know if you guys can see my me holding this up, but I'm Red River. Sherry, you use Red River. Why?
I like the quality of the paper. It's also a little bit less expensive than some of the high-end papers, but it's a real nice thick paper. And then it has a lot of, you have a lot of different choices of the kind of paper. So sometimes like it's certain, depending on the picture that I'm doing, like maybe I want to use a linen paper or a metallic or gloss. I don't use matte a lot. I tend to go between those three. But it gives me a lot of choice, and the quality of the paper is very, very good.
The now when you go to Red River, one of the things that they have is they have profiles available.
Right.
So if you I'm not sure if we're seeing this, but Red EDVR paper. PA. I'm sorry, folks, I can't type, but I'm kind of a little nervous because I don't have my notes that I normally go by.
You're so good.
I'm going off memory. All right,
Probably
sure.
with all your handouts.
Oh, I don't give out handouts, and we all know that. We all know that. Search for, I'm going to search for print model, paper type. I'm going to search for profiles. Color printer profiles for the Epson. Okay, you can go to the Red River and you can say, okay, I have a particular type of printer. And for that particular type of printer, I want the profiles that from your paper source, and that will help me to get as close as I can to what I'm seeing on my screen. And you're gonna not often, you are going to put in your platform, Mac or Windows, and also your printer. And you're also going to get the type of paper that you are interested in. Now, one of the things that I really, 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 really love about Red River, as Sherry was mentioning, is that not only do they have a bank of choices, they will send you samples.
Yeah.
Samples to print from with those choices. And when you get a sample pack from Red River, the sample pack will not only have just the paper on the back. It'll tell you exactly which paper that you're printing with, and therefore you can then run it through your printer, get the image you like, and then see on the back what paper you're using. Because when they send you the paper pack, it is a bunch. Is that what you found, Sherry?
Yes, I did. And
now, Jim Sykes, you said that you have about 10 papers that you use, and do you find this the same when you go to different? Do you use their profiles or do you use your own?
Oh no, I use their profiles. And anything luster or glossy that's all my Red River papers, and the heavy fine art papers I use from Epson. But I get the profile for that paper, for that printer, from the manufacturer of the paper that I'm using.
Right.
Now, when sometimes I go and get off paper. There's a paper that I actually like, and it is a cheap paper. It's Staples. It's called Staples Photo Supreme. Very, very cheap paper. And one of the things I like about it is it's a matte. And in that matte paper, let's see if I can see this. Oh, wait a minute, we can't even see it. Oh my goodness. It doesn't even show because of my deal here. Let's see if I can put something up here. Let's see what that looks like.
You can't see it.
No, it's not going to show up very well. But I shot this particular shot, and I'm so sorry that I don't have it on not able to bring it up quite well. But the point is that I printed on this cheap paper, this little fashiony kind of deal, and it has this soft, matte, dark, muted blacks look to it. And I fell in love with it. So I bought a big, like a 100 pack of this particular paper. And I only use it when I shoot this type of stuff. So I do have papers that are very specific to the whatever the subject matter I'm shooting. I'm going to go back to my Lightroom, and I'm going to point out something. I have something on the screen right here that I want you guys to see. I'm going to turn off soft-proofing. It's a picture of myself. Yes, I'm shameless plug about who I am and how great I look. But when I photograph this particular, this was actually a student photographing me for a lighting class. And in this particular photograph, I liked the photograph. I really did. But when I went to print it on my luster paper, it actually ended up coming up like that. And then on a different paper, it looked like this. You all seeing the difference?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All right. And when I actually put it on that dull, ugly matte paper, it wasn't that one. It ended up being more like that. So finding the right paper source for what you're doing is the key.
And you had to print this to actually see it? Like you're showing us these on the screen here. But
I'm showing you on the screen, yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't have that print in front of me. Because I wasn't prepared for this particular part. I was prepared for another thing. And so don't call me out in front of my in front of my face like this.
No, what I'm saying, when you were doing it, you were printing it and you were seeing this, and this is like your example what it came up as.
Right, yes. Okay. I thought you were telling me to show you the actual big 30 by 40 that I printed.
I'm not quite understanding this, Robert. Are those that you're showing me the print, a photograph of the print, or the digital?
This is the digital version, and this is how they came out. This is a look of how it actually ended up, what it looked like in the end.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, yes, the look that I got coming off the printer was more like this on one particular paper.
Yeah.
And then on another paper, it looked more like that. But on my regular, on this paper that I was just telling you about, this cheap paper, it looked more like this.
Well, did you render a soft proofing of each one of those? And did you see that on the soft proofing, or did you have to wait till it was printed to see the difference?
Well, let me tell you about it. I'm going about this cheap paper now. When I print, when you get cheap paper, they don't generally do profiles.
Oh.
All right. And what they do is they say, okay, if you're using a Canon, put it on a particular Canon paper source.
All right.
In other words, I'm printing on, it's a matte paper. They say, put your printer to a Canon matte. By putting it to a Canon matte, it's not a profile. It's simply a indicator to the printer as to how much ink to lay down. That's a difference as opposed to a profile. A profile is saying, this is what your numbers are being sent to the printer. And here, this is how our paper responds to those digital numbers. And
Can I jump in for a second there to help with that explanation?
Let me just complete that one thought. Yes, I was hoping you would jump in. But in laying down that particular ink is not a part of what, go ahead, Jim. Because I had it in my head.
I'm sorry. No, what I was going to just give like another way of thinking about the profile which is, think of it as a translator. Think of it like, your monitor is speaking English, but your printer speaks French. The language of light rays shooting through your screen at your eyes is a completely different language than the language of pigmented ink that light will reflect off of on paper. And as Robert says, those numbers need to be translated. And that's what the profile is. It's the translator that says, well, these numbers that you're seeing on your monitor of projected colored light rays have to be translated by this amount in order to look similar when it comes out as ink on paper, basically a different language. So therefore the numbers are being translated. If you think of it in your head as like that, that might help you understand what a profile does.
The reason why Jim Sykes is always around when I'm around is sometimes I get befuddled by the stuff that comes out of my mouth. and so in doing so, he does not like to see me fail. And therefore he saves my butt. So thank you very much, Jim, for doing so. Now I'll go back to Jack. Did that clear up some of the convoluted things I was saying?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Now thank Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
All right.
And as Robert was saying, when you indicate the paper type, every paper absorbs ink in a different amount. Fiber papers, matte papers, the ink goes into them and spreads through the fibers. The glossier papers, the ink does not spread so much. And that's when you're dictating the paper, that's how the printer knows, as Robert said, how much ink to lay down, because then the printer knows what the absorption of the paper is, how far the ink will absorb and spread through the paper, and therefore how much more or less ink it needs to put onto that paper. So that's the difference between specifying a paper and specifying a profile.
And also the print heads themselves, the heads that move across, that lay down the ink, based on the type of paper you put in there, will determine how above that paper or below, or on that paper, or close to that paper, not on the paper, that ink head will get. How close it will get to in laying down its ink. So it's vitally important that you put in profiles as well as paper type. Those are the two measures. And so going back to these particular images, I was highly disappointed. Oh, that's not what it was. At my regular paper, as far as what I was looking for, not necessarily what was actually there, what I was looking for, I was highly disappointed. And then I went to I remembered, I said, wait a minute, I bought this cheap paper. Let's see what that does. And it rendered exactly like I wanted. But here's one of the things that I wanted to tell you, which is going against all this stuff that I've been talking about for the last 20, 30 minutes, is that as far as a profile, I actually did not use a profile other than a paper type. I did something that I'm going to go into just the next couple of minutes here. I let the printer manage the profile. And that's how I was able to get the look that I wanted. So sometimes profiles with off papers will not work if the paper does not have a specific profile. In other words, sometimes it's okay to let the printer manage that profile. And let's go in here and let's see what.
And I'll say this too. I have a couple students that have the newer generations of Epson printers, and I can state from experience they do very well if you set it to printer manages color profile and let the printer manage it. And the newer generations of Epsons do a great job of it if you leave it up to the printer to figure it out for itself.
That's exactly my point. So I'm going
to
go
Can I second that motion?
Oh, yes.
But not to discount all of this thing about the profiles and selecting it, all that. I switched 2 years ago to a Canon Pro 1000, and I let the printer do all the work, and they come out beautiful.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. But at the same time, you can get the most out of a particular piece of paper if you use their profiles, especially if they've taken the time to calibrate those profiles to the ink paper combination and so forth. So here's what I want you to know about the printing portion of it. I'm going to go back to the print. So we're ready to do our printing. A couple of things that we need to know about when we're printing is going to be the print settings. It's over here on the left-hand side. It's going to say, what's our printer? The
I'm
second
sorry,
thing,
Robert, where'd you push that again?
I pushed the print settings on the left-hand side.
Okay, I see
If
it.
you're inside of Lightroom, it might be on the right-hand side, and it may not be there at all if you're in certain programs.
Okay.
But the print setting is defining what printer there is available. The second thing is going to be from the, oh yeah, here we go. The paper hand, not the paper handling. Oh yeah, print options. That's what I'm looking for. And on the Windows, it may be a little different, but it's pretty much the same information, which is going to be color matching. Under color matching, if you have a profile in, it's going on Macintosh, it's going to automatically gray that out because you're printing with a profile. So you're telling the printer, do not manage the information that it's receiving. Quality of media, that is the main thing that you want to make sure it is correct. And I don't often talk about being correct, but if this is wrong, then your printer may lay down too much or too little ink. And that's when I talk about the heads going up or down, based on whatever type of paper you choose. And when I say that, as was stated earlier, that there's a certain amount of ink that's coming out of those nozzles, and you want to make sure that if you are dealing with glossy paper, and that you tell it glossy and not matte, otherwise you're not going to get the results that you would like to see. My print quality is always high, unless I'm doing a test print. If I'm doing a test print, I generally do standard, but on my final print, my final first print, and what I mean by the final first print is that I put it to high, I print out a print, and usually a smaller size, and I'll say, okay, that's confirmed, and then I'll go to the larger paper and make sure that the high is, everything is working. Black and white photo, we all know what that means, it's a black and white photo. But this is the part that we need to make sure of what we're printing to. And I'll cancel that. And that's going to be inside of the print settings. After we go past there, and by the way, I know I'm talking fast and I'm talking about a whole bunch of stuff. And I know that a number of you guys have checked out because I'm seeing, even though your window is set to off, I can still see you behind those curtains.
And if you want to stop for a second with relation to what you were just talking about with the standard quality versus high quality, I see you're using a Canon printer, so I assume that's Canon's recommendations for Epson users. Epson specifically says, that only in rare cases do you actually want to go with the high quality, because on most papers, the absorption of the ink is enough that you will use the normal or standard quality versus the high quality, because you are not going to be able to tell the difference between the prints, but you're going to use much less of your ink. In the high quality, it puts more ink on the paper, but there are only very select papers that Epson recommends that you do that on, that you will notice the difference. If you put it on high on any of the on most of the normal papers, Epson says you are wasting ink and your print will take much longer to dry, and you are not going to see the difference between the two settings because you're putting ink onto ink.
And that is a damn good point. And I don't mean to be forceful about my language. I mean that what you're saying is absolutely correct, because that's why I do so many test prints, because a lot of times you really don't see the difference. You are 100% on that one. But
And
whenever,
and I didn't make that up. That is an actual Epson's recommendation from
well, I've
Epson
seen it in
themselves.
practice. In actual practice, I printed something on high and printed something on low. I mean on standard, and there is no discernible difference. You're right. But then
Other than that, it weighs a lot more because it's got a lot more ink in it. It takes a lot more time to dry.
yes, but I do have a particular paper that I have here, and it is a Red River, and it is a metallic like, and on that particular one, I find that there is a difference.
And that's where you will find the difference is in the ultra high gloss or metallic. That's where, anything matte, you will never know the difference. And on luster papers, you won't know the difference. But when you hit something that's super gloss and especially metallic, that's where, depending on the print, you could see the difference between that quality setting.
And that's exactly what where I see it. So having said that, thank you very much for that input. I generally print at a resolution of about between 240 and 300. I whatever the last thing I left it on. In fact, the bigger the print, I actually go down to more of a 240. The smaller the print, I tend to go more to the 300. 300 pixels per inch, and the smaller the print, more details you're going to get toward looking at it. The larger the print, I tend to go to 240. But make sure that you check with your printer and the printer paperwork, because they will tell you, like Epson, I think Epson goes to 340 or 360 as far as some of its requirement.
360.
360, yeah, there you go. So make sure you check with your printer. Jim, talk about, just for a second, I know I'm putting you on the spot, the 16-bit output versus the 8-bit output.
Okay, you're talking about the number of colors you're attempting to reproduce?
Yes.
In what respect do you want me to discuss that?
On the print dialog box, it says 16-bit output.
Okay, you're talking in Lightroom?
Yes.
Okay, I do not print from Lightroom.
You print from Photoshop?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Me too.
Do you print 8-bit or 16-bit?
For just about anything, I print 8-bit.
Okay, and most when you send your work out to service bureaus to print or print labs, they generally are 8-bit.
It's 8-bit, yes.
Yeah. Unless you're going to a particular printer person and they want to manipulate some of the image, or they're helping you with the image, then I would send out a TIFF 16-bit.
Yeah, if you're sending it out and you're going to allow someone on the other end to do more optimization of the piece for printing, then 16-bit gives them, that leeway for optimization. But once I have something ready to print, then I print from an 8-bit file. Now I will work in 16 bits, but I will convert it to 8-bit before printing. Once I have it where I want it to be.
Jim, why do you go from 16 to 8 when you're actually printing?
Say it again.
Why are you going from 16-bit to 8-bit when you're printing?
Because it's a lot bigger file that takes a lot longer time to buffer through the printer, and you're not going to see with your eyes in pigmented ink the difference. Your human eyesight is not going to tell the difference, and the inks are not even going to mix, have enough mixing capability to get the subtleties that are in a 16-bit file. And you have a file that's basically overly large, over gigantic, that is slowing down the process for no purpose that you could visibly see the difference in an actual print.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to lose you guys out there. So, but I do want you to hang with me with the thought. So as I go through this, I want to get to one other thing that is very important, even if you're just sending your work out. And that's the next thing down as to how you are going to set this image up to go out. If you want to send it from your print dialog box, because from here you can actually send out an image to actually go to let's see, an output of, I think you can send it as a JPEG. Is that right? Oh yeah, okay, here it is. Print to printer or print to a JPEG file. But if you are going to be printing to your printer, one of the things I want you to know is your rendering intent. You have perceptual and you have relative. Is anybody out there, now I know the answer to this, anybody out there other than Jim Sykes, print and have issues with either of those two?
No.
No? What I hear Jan, is that Jan talking?
No, that's Leslie, because I don't print.
Okay, I was saying, anybody who prints?
Be right back.
Still like to know.
I print, but I don't use those.
Yeah, you generally let the printer manage everything for you, right?
Exactly, and I'm happy with the result.
Yes. Okay. Well, there are two different types of intent here. When what you see on your screen and what you see on the reflective image are two different views. One is backlit, the other one is lit by the light of whatever available light, and it's reflected off of it. When a print is out of, they call it out of gamut. Remember we had the blue lines, all the blue in the background when we were showing those images. Those are saying that things are out of the printer's range. And so we have to make adjustments in order to bring them back. There are two different types of ways of bringing it back. Perceptual means that it takes the images that when we talk about out of gamut, we're talking about a particular space that the printer can handle. And when something is greater than that space, it doesn't really look that well when it's printed. So in order to bring them back into line or into gamut, we use perceptual or relative. Perceptual says that if something is out of gamut, it's going to move all of the colors at once in gamut, meaning it moves everything. It doesn't matter if it's in or out, but it takes whatever the part is out and moves the whole color space back in. Relative says that whatever is out of gamut, I'm only going to move whatever's out of gamut in gamut, and I'm going to leave the rest alone. So which one is better? You'd have to test and see. And when you test it, you want to test it per paper. So you'll find that if you do it with the perceptual and everything looks great and you are not into nuance at all, then go forward and be prosperous and have many, many baby prints. But if you are in the weeds about it, then I'd like for you to test relative and the perceptual, and you'll find that one will give you a little bit more detail than the other. And I'm not saying which one will do it, because it's still dependent upon whichever paper you use and whatever profile is going with it. So,
and I'm going to jump in here and say that this also, the whole thing with gamut goes back to all the way back to what Jim Hagan was talking about a print coming out not looking like it does on your screen. There is a huge difference in the gamuts of the screen. In other words, your screen, as we mentioned, is mixing colored light that is being projected. You can create many, many more millions of colors mixing beams of light than you can by mixing chemical pigment ink that goes on paper. So there's a much more restricted gamut. In other words, there's a lot less colors can be produced by mixing pigments that get put on paper than can be made by mixing beams of colored light that come out of a monitor. So you can create a lot more colors, and especially a lot more saturated and more vivid colors on your monitor than can ever be produced by ink. And I see that a lot of times with students. They make these really bright, vibrant, saturated images on their screen, and then they say, it doesn't look like that when I print it. And it never will, because on your screen, you are creating colors that can be seen on your screen, but you are creating colors that can never be physically reproduced by ink.
So can you talk about the difference between I can't, it's RGB, SGB, whatever it is,
sRGB, yeah.
and Adobe, and does it matter if you're in Lightroom and you have your monitor set to Adobe or SGB, whatever it is that going to make a difference at how it looks when you send it to a printer?
There's a lot of variables in the answer there, but
Depends.
there, depending on how you're doing in your process, that some of that conversion will take place for you, or sometimes you have to do it yourself. Now, because of the way that I do it, I know, because I print, I can't say how Lightroom may or may not handle some things, because I do not print through Lightroom. I print through Photoshop, but I make a print. I have an image that I'm going to print. I make a copy of it for printing that I'm going to make adjustments to, similar to what Robert is showing, making a soft proof copy in Lightroom. And in Photoshop, I will always convert it to a profile that I know the printer can handle, typically sRGB. So if it came into Photoshop in Pro Photo from Lightroom, before it gets looked at for the gamut for printing, doing a gamut check or anything, I convert to sRGB within Photoshop.
Okay,
but
so
this is on a copy of the file, not the original working version. It's a copy of the file made specifically for printing, and I convert the profile to sRGB and then check the gamut.
Okay, so let me clarify my question now that I have a little more knowledge. I just sent a photo off to printing to display at the Christmas party. And the way that I did it was I just made it look like I wanted it to look in Lightroom, and then I exported it the same as I export for when I send it to Lynn for competition. So I guess my question then, more refined, is at that point, does it matter what you have your screen set at, and does it matter how you have that set when you export it?
Yes, it absolutely does matter. And in fact, if you're sending it even to an outside printing service, they will specify in their specifications what gamut to put it in. They will specify whether they want Adobe RGB 1998 or whether they want sRGB. And if you're going to a 4-color print press, you may have to be putting it in CMYK. And which is going to look very different. And that's a whole nother story right there. But yes, it does make a difference what you're viewing it at on your screen versus what color profile is going to be embedded in the file when it goes for printing.
Okay. Sounds complicated.
It is complicated. Absolutely, it is complicated.
And that's why a lot of people do not print from home, because For me, I started off printing in Photoshop, and I had very good results with it. When Lightroom came out, I started printing through Lightroom and had very terrible results with it at first. But as with anything, you pick your poison and then you master it. And so I ended up printing through Lightroom because of the ease of it. And then because I don't do as much Photoshop as I used to do in the beginning. So that's my poison. Jim's poison is always going to be the opposite of mine. Now, we're inside of Photoshop here, and I want to point out about you're talking about color space. Edit, let's see, color settings. Okay. Brian, you were talking about sRGB. That's the one you were talking about.
Yep.
And that is a working space that this particular image has come into. I can set this particular working space to, as you meant, as was mentioned earlier, Adobe 1998, which is pretty much standard for what people work through inside of Photoshop. Is there any dispute to that, Jim?
Correct. That's been pretty much the primary standard for as long as I can remember.
And that is Adobe 19, Adobe RGB. That's pretty much the standard. So it has a pretty wide gamut space, and it's not as wide as what you have in Lightroom, which is Pro Photo, which is a wider space, which generally simulates what comes out of your camera.
So I use Photoshop and Adobe Camera Raw, but I have my color space set to Pro Photo.
Pro Photo, yes, that's going to be a wider color gamut than Adobe 1998.
All right. And then I'll trim it down to whatever use I'm doing.
Yes. Now, when it comes down to at the end, as Jim's mentioned, he makes a copy of it. And so let's just say hypothetically, it's in the Pro Photo color space. If it's in that particular color space, when you convert it, let's see, when you convert it, you can edit, convert to profile. I can then say, okay, I'm in Adobe 1998 right now, and I'm in Pro Photo right up top here, and I want to convert it down to send it out to the lab, and I'm going to go to sRGB. And that's generally what a lot of labs will accept if you are going online and you're not dealing with any particular personal lab. So.
And by the way, when you convert, make sure you actually choose the option that says convert to profile. You'll notice in the Photoshop menu, there's also an option that says assign profile. Assign profile, we're not going to get into it because it doesn't matter. All you need to know is don't ever pick it. Always choose convert to profile.
And that was under assign profile right here.
You have an option that says assign profile or convert to profile. Always choose convert to profile.
And so you want to tell it where, what profile you want, and that's generally going to be, if you're sending it out, sRGB. Okay.
I'm just curious, Sherry, is that what you usually do? Is that, or did you say you use the Pro Photo?
I use I don't send my prints out, but if let's say I'm doing it for the web, or I'm doing it for digital, I'll switch it over to sRGB. I just think that when I'm processing, I like to have as much information going into my picture as possible while I'm doing the processing. And then you can always bring it down, but you can't bring it up. So,
Correct.
I was just curious. Thanks.
Edit in the widest gamut possible, Pro Photo, for instance, but make sure that where it's going to, it's in the profile that it's intended to be reproduced at. Anything going on the web, on the internet, should also be sRGB. If you send, a lot of times people say, oh, I put something online, I put it on my website, I put it on Facebook, and it looks nothing like it did on my monitor. Well, you may have been working on it in Pro Photo and sent it out that way, and instead of converting it to sRGB before putting it out there to Facebook or Instagram or wherever. And and when it gets on their end, everything gets mangled with the colors.
So you said Facebook and Instagram. What about if you're putting in a Lightroom gallery online?
Now, Lightroom, when you're working in Lightroom and Lightroom creates a gallery for the web, the files that it produces for its web gallery, it does the sRGB conversion for you in the background for those files so that they look good on the web.
Okay.
You don't have to do a conversion yourself because Lightroom already knows you're making a web gallery. So Lightroom is smart enough to know, well, when they go out on the web, they're going to be sRGB.
At what point do you convert from or go from 16-bit to 8-bit?
Going to sRGB will automatically cause that to happen for you because sRGB is an 8-bit color space. So when you convert to profile and say sRGB, it will at that point automatically go from 16 bits to 8 bits.
Okay, thanks.
You don't have to do it as two separate processes. It happens in that step.
Now, let's see. Let me go right here for just 1 second. We're almost done, guys. So you can come back from your bathroom break. And I say these things in all fun because I think that nobody wants to hear what I have to say. So it's my insecurity.
Oh no, we're listening.
We got 27 people here. That's a lot for Friday night.
All right.
Thursday
Now,
night.
I want you to know something. If you look up top on the file number here, it's kind of hard to see. We're in 16-bit right here. I'm inside of Photoshop, by the way. It's a 16-bit file. And what I generally will do is under mode, where the heck, image mode, yes, I'll convert that to 8-bit for the purpose of printing. All right, so that's what you want to make sure that you are dealing with. And now that I'm 8-bit, it says that there's a little asterisk right there that says that there is a somewhat of a profile mismatch right there. So in that profile mismatch, I will then image edit and convert to profile. And I will profile in 8-bit. And I'll go to sRGB and click OK. And now I have an 8-bit file and it is ready to go.
Is that still an asterisk right there?
It's still an asterisk. I think that there's asterisk. Let's see, image 25 sRGB. Well, I don't know why it's still there. Normally it goes away. But at that point, I do know I have an 8-bit file.
Okay.
So
how do you print from Photoshop?
It's going to be file and then print. You'll get this dialog box here. In this dialog box, I'm going to say scale to the print size, or I'll have a particular size. Right now, you see it at 100%. This is going to be 28 by something. I'm just going to scale to fit the media just so that I can get my entire face in there. And from that, I have the printer listed up top. Let me move this something out of the way here. Sorry, let me move this out of the way. Okay. Settings. Okay. There we go. Under print settings, here's my paper size. I will say whatever it is that I'm doing. Let's say I'm doing a 13 by 19. There's the paper size, and the layout, just like we did in before where we had the type of printer options, the quality of the media, and all that stuff is under your print settings. I'll save that particular part, and then from there, color handling will be, in this case, Photoshop manages the colors for me, or the printer manages colors. In my case, what we're talking about is printer profiles. Photoshop manages the colors. When Photoshop manages the colors, it's saying, what's the profile? the printer profile, then it's going to come down to, let's say we're going to be printing on luster paper. There it is. And the rendering intent that we talked about. And that's, in this case, it's going to be perceptual. And there are going to be a number of choices, but your choices are going to be really between relative and colorimetrics. Now, if you were in the graphics and graphic design, it's going to be absolute colorimetrics. If you're a graphic design person and you're printing via client color chart, what's it called? PMS, is it PMS? Yeah, PMS color chart. So you'll be printing from this particular one down here. And that means that whatever colors that are absolute in the image should match the output. And generally it's going to be for CMYK printing, cyan, yellow, magenta, black printing. K stands for black. Black point compensation, you want to have that on. If it's off, then it will the printer won't know how to treat the blacks, and if it doesn't know how to treat the blacks, it's going to do the least amount of giving you the color range that you need. If I got that right, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I have to have my person there to keep me in check.
The fact checker.
I'm also
Oh,
bringing
you know
something else up in the background on my screen that we can share at some point, but I don't want to interrupt. Keep going.
All right, so I have this particular part. I have the position. I have the scaling. I tend to print when I print on larger papers. I tend to print with printer marks, crop marks, and all that kind of stuff. But that's not important to you guys because I tend to cut out my own images, print to a large sheet, and cut them out. Okay, and that's about it. And then you hit the print button and it goes to the printer and all of that stuff that goes along with it.
That's pretty darn close to what's in Lightroom now. I mean, it's not a whole lot of difference. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to switch over to Jim, and so that you can go ahead and say what you need to say, Jim. Is that okay?
Yeah, I can't do any demonstrations of printing from of anything from my computer because my desktop computer is not connected to a printer. I have no profiles or anything in it. I actually, it's all in my laptop, and I take the laptop to the printer when I want to. But just because we were talking about it, just to help give you a bit of an understanding about this gamut and color space, I'm going to share my screen and bring up a gamut chart for you, and just help explain a little bit in the background what we're talking about with that. This may help you also see why what you see on your screen does not come out in print, or you can't get to come out in print the way you see it on your screen. So, can you see this?
Yep.
All right. This is color spaces. I'm going on the big one on the right, and you see it's over and over again all over the internet. But if you see the whole colored area where you see all the colors in here, that represents what human vision can perceive. That's what you can see with your eyes. That's all the colors you can see with your eyes. One of the reasons that it's nice to work in ProPhoto RGB is because you have the algorithms give you the most amount of colors to work with. Do you see this big triangle out here? That's the biggest triangle of all.
Yeah.
That's the colors that can be reproduced within the ProPhoto RGB color space. You'll notice, interestingly enough, in ProPhoto RGB, you can mathematically produce colors that can't be seen by human eyesight. You see these areas here? However, no color space that you can work with in monitors and printing is still capable of reproducing, I should say, all the colors that you can see with your eye. You notice how much color, even with ProPhoto RGB, still falls outside of that gamut. So when you're outside in the world, you can see this many more colors than ProPhoto RGB. But ProPhoto RGB can make a few colors you can't see. Now, working in Photoshop, the old standard, forever and ever that's been working with Adobe RGB, that Adobe RGB 1998. That's this. See this blue triangle right here? That's the amount of colors you can reproduce in that color space, which has been pretty much the standard forever. But you can see how many more colors ProPhoto RGB, which you're working with in Lightroom, can make than the Adobe RGB right here. Now, what most printers are capable of producing by mixing inks is the sRGB color space. And you notice that's this triangle right here that they have, the brightest, highlighted within this golden triangle right here. This is what can typically be reproduced by ink, and also what the internet is designed to reproduce on, social media sites and things like this, is this many colors. So this is where it can come into a problem where you do not convert before you print and then, and do a gamut check. Is you're working and reproducing all these colors out here on your screen, and then you go to print and you've got ink that's only capable of reproducing this many colors. And therein comes a major part of why people say, oh, I can't get it to come out and print the way I see it on my monitor. That's because your monitor sees all this, but your printer can only reproduce this by mixing chemical inks. Does that make sense and hopefully help people to a certain extent?
Extremely well.
And this is why you do the conversion to sRGB before you print. And then you can see, what it's, a much closer rendering of what it's going to look like. And I'm imagining, I don't use Lightroom for printing, but I'm imagining when you're doing soft proofing, that is happening automatically when you activate soft proofing, that it is now, rendering what you're seeing on screen within the sRGB color space.
Also,
Am I correct to assume that, Robert?
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you very much.
That's another
All
reason
right.
why when you send your images to me, even though it's from monitor to monitor, you're now looking at the sRGB version of your image, so you're not going to see the same colors on the image that you sent me than what you had on your computer.
Yes, good point, Lynn. When we're watching on Zoom, even if you sent out an image that you worked on in ProPhoto RGB and it was that's what you saw on your screen, as soon as it's on Zoom, you're limited to this amount of colors right here, and so all these other colors, nobody else is going to see them on Zoom. And you say, oh, well, it didn't look like that on my screen. Well, because now on Zoom, we're going over the internet. We're now limited to the range of colors right here.
So
Got it?
All you people that spent all those thousands of dollars on those retina screens, when it gets out into the internet space, this is what you're dealing with, that sRGB.
Yep. So when you make these images with all these super saturated, vibrant, bright colors, and you want people to see what you've done, invite them over to your house and have them look at it on your monitor.
But let me just be clear. You're telling me that when you print, it's only going to do sRGB, and when
Yes.
you on the internet, it's only going to do sRGB. So literally what you just said, the only time anybody's going to see your ProPhoto RGB version is if they're looking at it on your monitor. If
That's why I just made that statement about you want people to really see it the way you made it look. Invite them over to look at it on your monitor.
Otherwise,
that wasn't a sarcastic statement. That's reality.
And the next thing that goes with that is the type of substrate or the type of paper that you use. All papers are not the same. Some papers will render stuff closer to what you see in a Adobe format than the sRGB, and that's going to be like your metallic prints or your prints with a lot of high gloss in it, and that will make it render a little bit more toward what you perceive your memory of what the image looked like to be.
So, but what I'm learning here that is extremely important if it's correct is that when you're processing your photo in Lightroom, if you want to know what the person's going to see, whether you print it and hang it on your wall, or whether you send it to them on the internet for, in my case, a Lightroom gallery, you have to have it in sRGB because otherwise you're not going to know what they're going to actually see.
You hit the nail on the head, Brian. You've got it. You understand it now.
Okay.
And this is what frustrates so many people that don't understand this. And also a lot of people will just post things out to the internet or whatever in, Adobe RGB or ProPhoto RGB, and then it gets out there and it gets reproduced, on the other end here. And so the colors have all been shifted by somebody else, or some other computer algorithm somewhere that you have no control over has shifted it into this space. And people say, oh my God, my picture looks horrible when I put it on the internet. That's why.
That makes tonight all worthwhile.
Brian and all of you, every time that Jim and I speak, and then the president announces it, it's always worthwhile.
Oh, yeah. We wouldn't do it if it wasn't worthwhile, guys.
So I know that was a pretty arrogant statement, but I meant that in jest, is that we do this because we want to inform you that there are options to what you can do with your prints, but oftentimes people will say it doesn't look like that on my monitor, and you're right, but this is why. The other thing that in my conclusion that I think that a criticism in a sense that I want to make is that oftentimes you'll say something about how the image actually looked in person when you were there. I remember it being a certain way. And then when you get it to your monitor or you get it to your computer, you're trying to go off of that memory by hiking up the colors, making it much more vibrant. And then when you actually send it out, it ends up looking a lot duller than you had intended it. So that's one of the reasons why I'm saying to you about printing. Printing is your final presentation. So
hey, Robert,
are printing great for you. If you're sending it out, even better. Now you have an understanding of what happens when you do send it out. And but if you're not printing at all and you're simply relying on your monitor, I suggest that you actually go in and get some prints made, because your kitchen and your hallway is bare right now. Put something on it.
And Robert, I had to deal with something out of the room for a few minutes and whatnot. Did you actually show people a gamut warning at any point?
No, I did not show them a physical gamut warning like you did.
Well, I didn't show a gamut warning, did I? I showed the actual color space gamut.
Oh yes, I did show a gamut warning. Yes, I did.
Okay, good. All right,
Yes.
good. Okay.
I did show that.
Okay.
So at this time, I will entertain for the next couple of minutes any questions or thoughts, or even accolades and praises.
Well, I know Fong talked a while ago about, recommendations and stuff like that. I know that they've got the printers now where you can buy the big jars or whatever ink to go with it. Is that a good thing? Not a good thing?
It's all about your ability to want to be economical, or you want to be standard. If you're going to be printing a lot of things, then understand who you're getting the ink from. And inks that go through printers that are not made for the printer can actually, in the long run, make your images not stable. And what I mean by not stable is that they will fade a lot sooner than not.
Well, I was thinking that Epson's been advertising about having, larger ink containers and stuff. Because I know when I was printing, my complaint was, I think it was Hagen was talking about how you'd use up the ink, or maybe it was McWilliams, use up the ink in the little cartridges so fast that it seemed like you were constantly, replacing those cartridges before you printed too much.
Yes,
I
you
just
know,
wanted-
just like anything, yeah, buying in bulk saves you money. If you have a printer that allows you to, use ink in bulk like that, yes. And that is one thing. Printers with the smaller cartridges that are prone to clogging, or any printer that's prone to clogging will run through a lot more of your ink. You're going to use much less ink doing routine cleaning of it than trying to unclog it.
So if you are getting a printer, at least once a week, print something. At very least. I tend to leave my printer on, and so that the heads stay a little warm, and I am printing 2 to 3 times a week.
I always used to buy my printer. I still buy my printers from Costco because I don't use them that often, and they always clogged up. And so I just used their unlimited warranty to replace them when they clogged up.
Mm-hmm.
This last printer that I got, every once in a while, it'll wake me up in the afternoon because I'm taking a nap, and it just automatically turns on and runs the printer. And this one has lasted a lot longer than any of the other previous ones because it has that auto whatever printing thing feature.
Is that a Canon, Brian, or an Epson?
I'll have to look. Let me look.
No,
'Cause
let's not let you
my
look.
Canon does that too. It
Yeah, my
automatically-
Canon does it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot less clogging on my Canon since I've switched to Canons from Epson.
It's a brother. The last one I bought is a brother.
It's a black printer.
I should have expected that from you.
It's a bro printer.
Guys, I hope this has been helpful to you all.
It has.
And I do appreciate you hanging with me throughout.
It has been very instructive. Thank you, Robert.
And I
Jim.
really, I know Jim Sykes did not expect this, but thank you so much, sir, for stepping in.
Oh, I enjoy being a part of it, and thanks for doing this presentation. With winging it without notes, you did a great job.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah.
If you took all of those photos of yourself and put a measurement on the wall behind you, that would make a great mug shot.
Jim, that joke took too long.
Yeah.
Hey, Robert, one thing you didn't do is you didn't make a recommendation of what a printer to buy for Fong.
Fong, I just want you to know this, if you're listening, that a printer is a personal thing, like a shoe and a purse and a camera. I'd start off with if you have never had a printer, I would not buy the biggest printer there is. I would, however, go with the 2 brands that are most popular, Canon and or Epson, and then I'd buy a small printer and print from it and see if you like it. If you do like it, print some 8x10s out, and then find out how much you print. If you're going to do a lot of printing, then step up to the bigger printers.
Yeah, in general, the printers are not that expensive. It's the ink that actually costs you all the money in the paper.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm recommending that you buy something small based on the size that you normally print. So does that make sense, Vaughn?
I don't know this self print, this color can keep longer or not.
If you're talking about longevity of the print, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, if go to shop, this picture can keep color longer. Self print maybe go keep a couple year, 1 year, 2 year.
Well, generally, you can expect a print on something that's an off-brand to fade in about 8 years. I know that sounds, but if you use the original Epson or Canon inks, they will last a lot longer.
Yeah, it depends on the
Okay,
paper and where it's hanging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
that's also correct. If it's around a lot of light, it's going to fade a lot faster.
Speaking of light, that actually brings up another point about things coming out of the printer not looking like they do on your monitor. I've encountered this. I have one student in particular. I almost want to just hit her over the head every time because we've discussed it 100 times and she never remembers it. She works in a room that has incandescent lighting, which is yellowy orange lighting. And she prints and the stuff and it comes out and she says, "Oh, the colors aren't right." And I keep reminding her, "You've got yellow lights in the room. Carry that print over by the window. Look at it in the window light." "Oh, yeah, it looks good." Yeah,
That or change your light.
The lighting that you're viewing the print under also makes a big difference. If you're in a room with incandescent lighting and you pull that print out of the printer in a room with incandescent lighting, the colors aren't going to look as they are intended to look. Those colors are mixed in the printer to be correct under daylight lighting conditions.
Right.
So remember that as well.
She can change her incandescent light bulbs to daylight bulbs. LED.
Yes, and nope. But she likes those bulbs. But she never remembers when she prints something that she's looking at it under yellow light. I can't tell you how many times I've told her, carry it over to the window. Oh, that's right.
Very good. Good point. Yeah, I changed all my light bulbs in my room because of that very problem that I was having initially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions,
Thank
guys?
you. Very good. Hey,
And with printer recommendations, I will say this: I have a couple students now that have gotten the Epson P700, P900 series printers, and they do very well. They do their own color management very well, and they do not have clogging issues yet that I've encountered with the 700, 900 series. And the good thing with those too, when you get into a more expensive printer like that, you get something that's called a maintenance tank, which is actually it's a box with a sponge in it. And when you do clean heads and things like that, it's where the ink goes. It goes into a big sponge. When it pumps the ink through the heads, there's no paper in there. It pumps it into this tank that has a sponge that holds it. And the better printers will show you how full that is getting. And when it gets full, you can actually take it out of there and you see this sponge full of black ink. Don't touch it. And they give you a plastic bag to put it in. And then you get a fresh box with a fresh sponge that goes in. I did have this actually happen with a student that had a lower priced printer that actually lasted for years and years and years and printed great, but it did not have a replaceable, changeable tank in it. And then eventually one day, while cleaning the heads, the tank overflowed.
Oh, jeez.
Because it was not a replaceable. And then the printer got ink all over the inside of the printer, and it was ruined and had to go into the trash.
Right.
So that's another thing. If you're going to do a lot of printing, a better printer that has a replaceable maintenance tank is something to look at as well.
Yep.
Any other questions, guys? It's about 10 minutes to 9.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind. It's off to another track. All through the night while I've been listening to this presentation, I've had interruption in the video, and I would lose the sound for about 5 seconds or so. And then a notice would come out that I have an unstable internet connection.
I had that come up once.
I'm sorry?
That showed up on my screen once. The notice.
It showed up at least 10 or 12 times tonight for me. Is it something to do with my internet, or was it, okay. And
I wasn't having any issues on this end.
I believe it's you, Jack, because I've had zero issues all night, but I have noticed on your end, you've had a lot of lag with your video not following your voice, etc., as I watch you. So
Okay.
it's happening in bidirectional on your end. So it seems as though it's a connectivity issue on your end.
Okay,
And
thank
Jack,
you.
I've noticed this. Some of mine, I've noticed it a little bit too, but not that much tonight, but a little bit. Like Jim talking just now, I noticed it. So.
None here. No delays. No anything.
Okay.
And it makes a difference if you're actually plugged into a Cat 5 or a Cat 6 cable to your router, or whether you're working over Wi-Fi through your house. And
No, I'm plugged in on one computer. I tried both computers.
oh, okay.
And I'm plugged in on one and I'm Wi-Fi, and they both did the same thing.
Then it's happening on the then it's happening in your router or on the other side of your router.
Yeah, I'll call Verizon.
It might be time for a
Thank you.
new router.
Yeah, I'll take care. Thank you. Wonderful night. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
I'm gonna-
Robert, Jim, as
I'm
usual.
gonna go listen to a debate.
Thank you.
Very informative. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you
All
for the
right, Steve.
talk.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys for
everyone.
listening.
See you
Appreciate
Sunday.
you.
Yeah, see you.
Yep. See you Sunday.
See you Sunday.